So this episode was supposed to kick off the 23rd season of SportsLine, but the pandemic has obviously complicated things. Hello, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. With no LaSalle Sports this season, we are truly saddened to inform you that all of us at SportsLine will not be filming this semester. Psych, 28 minutes of the best show on LaSalle TV is coming to you now. You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. On the first episode of the 23rd season, we give you the updates from every team's long off-season.
And later, Siobhan and I sat down with former SportsLine host Kerri Corrado to talk about her current position in the news world and how the pandemic has impacted her day to day.
But before that, Tyler, top three.
Number 1. The Atlantic 10 Conference announced on July 17th the postponement of all scheduled fall contests in conference, sponsored sports, and the A10 championships due to the continuing COVID-19 global pandemic. The league intends to conduct a competitive schedule for the fall sports in the 2021 spring semester. The conference and institutional leadership have agreed to a, quote, look-in window, end quote, mid-September, allowing for a potential shortened season amongst conference opponents, and the COVID-19 risk has substantially been reduced. The reinstatement of the conference competition following the look-in window would require medical and institutional protocols that would assure the safety of student athletes, staff, and the campus community. If COVID-19 risk levels do not improve, the teams and student athletes will continue training and practicing while attending classes and prepare for a spring 2021 competitive schedule. The competitive schedules for winter sports will remain untouched at this time.
Number 2, LaSalle University Director of Athletics and Recreation Brian Baptiste has named Christine Pereira as Assistant Athletic Director for Compliance. Pereira comes to Philadelphia after spending the last 2 years at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where she served as the Director of Compliance. During her time at UNLV, Pereira was the primary compliance contact for the football, soccer, golf, and track and field programs, working directly with the sport programs and handling day-to-day compliance responsibilities. She worked directly with conference and national offices on waiver and petition submissions and was the primary liaison with student housing on all-income student-athlete dorm and meal requests. Pereira is no stranger to the Atlantic 10, having worked at the University of Richmond from 2016 to 2018 as an assistant compliance coordinator. A graduate of the University of Central Florida, Pereira also has earned her master's degree in sports leadership from Northeastern.
Number 3. The men's basketball team has made 3 coaching changes ahead of the 2020-21 season. Serving last year as an assistant of head coach Ashley Howard's staff, Kyle Griffin has been elevated to associate head coach. Griffin, a former LaSalle athlete, helped secure one of the top mid-major recruiting classes in the country in 2019 and assisted in signing 4 new members of the class of 2020. Howard also announced that Pete Gash will assume the role of Director of Player Development and Analytics. Gash spent 2 years as a lead assistant coach for player development at UMass. Prior to that, Gash spent 2 years as an assistant at U Chattanooga, a tenure that featured a berth into the 2016 NCAA tournament. Lastly, the Explorers will be adding John Cox to the coaching staff. A local basketball standout and a high school player at GW Carver, he went on to play 4 seasons at the University of San Francisco following his father's footsteps, former NBA draft pick John Chubby Cox. After his collegiate career, Cox played professionally from 2005 to 19 in both Europe and South America and was part of Venezuela's team for the 2016 Summer Olympics in Brazil, and was also the leading scorer in the 2017 FIBA AmeriCup. That does it for this week's edition of Top 3. Now, although we may not see these teams until the spring semester, let's take a look at all the teams that we're expecting to play in the fall season.
Women's soccer welcomed 7 new faces to the Explorers roster, with each player based locally out of Pennsylvania and New Jersey. The team was able to recruit a range of positions, including defense, midfield, and forwards. Head coach Paul Royal has spoken out about his excitement for these new recruits and sees, quote, the potential to further impact our program back to our championship ways from the 2011 and 2014 era. Royal also gave a lot of credit to assistant coaches Courtney Nemec and Matt Brooks for securing such a promising squad to replace the loss of 6 seniors from the previous year. The 2019 season saw the Blue and Gold go 11-8-1 with an appearance in the A10 semifinals, but ultimately losing to St. Louis University with the freshman class talked so highly of. We're excited to see what's in store for women's soccer in their upcoming season.
Men's soccer is looking to seriously revamp their squad this season as the Explorers and 11 new players to their roster. Hailing from the familiar Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, and New England area, and even Finland, head coach Rob Irvin is expecting these new additions to bring versatility and experience to the current team, as if all the incoming players have competed in high-level club environments. Irvin stated that, quote, the class joins a very resilient group of returners who last season demonstrated their grit and desire after finishing 8-9-1 overall last season. With a 4-4 record in the A10, the Blue and Gold are expecting this group, comprised of 6 middle infielders/forwards, 4 defenders, and 1 goalkeeper, to not only make up for the loss of 4 seniors last year, but keep them trending upward for the season ahead.
In April, the field hockey team made some noise hiring MAKAYLA HANCOCK as their new head coach. A graduate of Bryant University, HANCOCK played 66 games as a defender and was a 2-time captain her junior and senior year. After her playing career, Hancock became a volunteer coach at Providence University for 2 years, before coaching at Northwestern, where she helped coach them to the 2017 CAA tournament. MAKAYLA coached 2 seasons here at Salle before being elevated to the head coaching position. And Brian Baptiste said, MAKAYLA is someone who brings energy and enthusiasm to the team and is looking forward to seeing how things pan out for the field hockey team. As for the students, 7 players were named to the Division I Scholars List, led by seniors Amanda Chapin and Emma Provost. This list recognizes players whose GPA is 3.9 or higher in a semester.
With 6 seniors graduating for the volleyball team, there is certainly symmetry in place as the incoming group consists of 6 new explorers. Alongside those 6 freshmen came an addition to the coaching staff, as Jill Loeres will be the assistant volleyball coach for the 2020-21 season. Loeres played in 105 matches across her 4-year career with the Dayton Flyers, winning conference championships in 2012, 2014, and she was named to the all-tournament team her senior year after recording 25 kills and 6 total blocks over 2 games. The Explorers finished 2019 with a 15-14 overall record, 8-6 in the A10. They had some late life when entering the Atlantic 10 Championship by beating number 4 seeded George Washington, but their season would end in the hands of VCU in the semifinals, who went on to win the Atlantic 10 Championship.
The swimming and diving team are in a national search for a new head coach after Jamie Platt resigned in July to take on the position of executive director at Middle Atlantic Swimming. Platt left some big shoes to fill, having broken over 50 school records, won over 25 Atlantic 10 Championship event titles, and set 5 conference records. Assistant coach Sasha Malanina will serve as interim head coach. However, some good news for the team came in the form of Sarah Rossetto being named to the Philadelphia Inquirer's 2019-2020 Academic All-Area Women's Swimming and Diving Team. Rossetto dominated in her sophomore campaign with the Explorers, breaking 6 records and being named A10 Performer of the Week twice, all while maintaining an impressive 3.96 cumulative GPA.
The men's and women's rowing team announced their new head coach just in time for the season to be postponed. Jeff GARBUTT is a South Jersey native who collegiately rowed at Temple University. He joins the Explorers rowing program after a wildly successful 7-year stint at the University of Iowa. GARBUTT was able to secure a 3 straight NCAA championship appearance for the women's team and helped achieve many records for the team's 2017. The following year under GARBUTT's leadership, the Hawkeyes finished 7th in the nation's ranking, which was the highest in program history. Along with the new coach, the Explorers welcomed 4 new rowers to the men's team and 6 new rowers to the women's team. With a new coach and 10 new additions to the team, the Blue and Gold are sure to see some big changes come springtime if the season is able to revamp by then.
The men's water polo team welcomed 7 new explorers to their roster, including 4 domestic players hailing from Pennsylvania, Texas, and California, while also boasting 3 international players from Serbia, New Zealand, and Italy, which is the largest international haul for the men's team. Head coach Tom Hyam is looking to reinforce the blue and gold's numbers in the cage with the addition of 4 goalkeepers, while 3 field players will bring, quote, speed, versatility, and experience to the current team. Women's water polo also added to their numbers, bringing 5 new names to their roster. In addition to 4 domestic players, including Mia Mattingly from Pennsylvania, Allie Wagner from Florida, Hannah Warren from Colorado, and JC Morris from California, the women's team has added their first ever international recruit, Adrian Horvath, who calls Hungary home. These 5 recruits feature heavily in attack, bringing, quote, toughness, versatility, and playmaking ability to the Explorers.
That does it for the season recaps. But earlier this week, Siobhan and I sat down with a former SportsLine host, Kerri Corrado, who now works for WHDH Network in Boston, Massachusetts, for our first ever edition of Virtual on the Sidelines. Check it out. Today we have a different sort of guest. She's not a current athlete at LaSalle University, however, she used to hold the desk here for LaSalle TV's SportsLine. It is Kerri Corrado, the current news reporter for WHDH TV in Boston, Massachusetts. Kerri, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. You know, I did play sports too.
Yes, you did. There we go. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about your time at SportsLine and just LaSalle as a whole and everything in between. So let's get into it.
So when you were a part of LaSalle TV hosting SportsLine, obviously that was an area of interest coming into LaSalle, but did you have an interest in broadcasting before you came to college?
Absolutely. I knew this was the field that I wanted to be in. So that kind of allowed me to know what schools I wanted to look at. But I remember going to LaSalle and going into the studio and seeing the cameras and seeing all the people and seeing how they can put together a show and I can be a part of it from the very first day. I said, this is the school I'm going to. And I remember trying to jump into LaSalle TV as soon as I could. So it was the perfect school for me, and I made the best decision ever.
Great to hear. So you just mentioned earlier that you were an athlete at LaSalle, and you also covered the athletes at LaSalle for SportsLine. But then when you get out of college, you jump into the news world, a much heavier topic, I should say. So talk about what that process was like, switching aspects or switching TV genres like that, and talk about the similarities or differences between the two.
So I grew up playing sports my whole life. I played basketball, soccer, and softball. So I lived and breathed sports. I enjoyed watching them. So I said, I like to do broadcasting and I like sports. This could work. So I got into SportsLine and I loved, keeping tabs on the games and watching the athletes. And some of them were my friends. So, it was fun doing SportsLine in that aspect. But then when it came to get my first job, news opening opened and I just took it and went for it and I haven't looked back.
So going off of that, you obviously love doing sports and it was something that came very natural to you. So how has that experience in LTV helped you in what you do today?
So I remember every single time we had a show, and I'm sure it's the same for you, when you walk in the studio, you're with all your friends, everyone's saying hi. It's exciting to put on a show. And I feel like that's kind of how I learned my presence on television, also with internships and public speaking and things like that. But to do a show, I think it really helps develop your presence on air, especially when, let's say, you have to fill time. So you have to ad lib or you have to banter back and forth with stories. I enjoy learning how to ad lib and speak my mind and fill time that way. And that ad libbing I was able to carry over now in every single day at work, when maybe I have to fill time or I'm live on a scene and I have to keep talking. You don't have a script many times. So to be able to go off script, I think is something I was able to develop at LaSalle to kind of bring with me for my jobs all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing about LaSalle TV, it's definitely thinking on your feet. But going off of that, I think some of the best stories from anyone at LaSalle TV that you remember for a long time are some of those royal screw-ups, whether it's behind the scenes or on camera. So, do you have any particular stories that really stick out to you that you specifically remember to this day?
You know, it's funny, you always mess up. Still to this day, you mess up, but it's how you move forward and how you go on. And you're not going to be perfect. And everyone expects that when you watch TV. You know, you're going to mess up here and there. And you mess up at LaSalle TV. I messed up a million times on SportsLine. But you have to just keep going, and you have to know, you know, I messed up this time, but there'll be another show. You know, you don't have to keep your mind so focused on you messing up. But I do remember the one time we were doing a show and a fly, I could see it buzzing around my head. And I remember trying to stay calm, but I really just wanted to, you know, get it out of my face. And I remember it like landing on me or something. And I kind of did like a swatting motion in a way. I totally can't remember what I did, but I tried to stay calm and keep going. And that's what I try to do. And even now in the field, you have to stay calm and you have to keep going if something goes wrong, because you're live in the field every single day for work and things don't always go the way you plan. And so you have to know how to roll with it and go with the flow and keep the show moving. So I think that's also what I learned at LaSalle. You know, being around your friends and messing up together, you kind of learn together. And I think that's kind of the best part about it. I enjoyed every single day going into that studio and doing a show. And you'll look back and realize how much fun it was and how much you learned at the same time.
So you were from New Jersey, you went to LaSalle, you spent some time in Philadelphia, but what was it like to make the transition from Philadelphia to working in Boston? You know, like what kind of appealed to you about working up there?
So I started off doing a lot of internships in Philadelphia. I tried to intern at every single station I could. I just loved going there and shadowing the reporters and being in that environment. So with LaSalle TV and the internships, I knew this was the business that I wanted to be in. I also love to write. So I learned how to, you know, my presence as well at the internships and watching a lot of the reporters and how the stations worked. So at those internships, I was able to put together my demo reel, and I got my first job in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which was a small market. And then I went to Providence, Rhode Island, and now I'm in Boston. And I see a lot of similarities in Boston and Philadelphia, you know, especially with the sports fans. You know, that's the best part, is seeing their energy and passion when, you know, up here we cover the Patriots games, and, you know, they won the Super Bowl and things like that. So I think the passion within the fans reminds me so much of the fans in Philadelphia, the big city feel here. It's a great city to be a part of, and I'm honored that I'm even working here as well. But I do see very big similarities in both cities.
Don't worry. We'll cut out all that good stuff you just said about Boston, because this is going to a Philadelphia market. So going off Siobhan's question a little bit, everyone has a journey to where they got to where they are, especially if you wind up in the media market. And some credit their quote unquote big break or something that really got them noticed to their demo reel, or just an internship that got them good connections, or any part of networking really. What do you think was the biggest catalyst in getting you to where you are today?
I can't say one thing is what got me there. I think it was just throwing myself in everything that I could. So doing LaSalle TV, doing internships. I loved being in class and public speaking. I loved to write. So I think a little bit of everything kind of shaped the reporter I am today. I always say, try to be yourself on TV. You don't want to change yourself just to have a different presence. I want people to watch TV and know that's the person that I am. So I try to be the best I can be every day. So.
And in your journey, obviously, you've learned a lot, you've been a lot of places, you have a lot of experience, but what would you say is the most difficult part of your journey up to this point?
I think the difficult part is being away from your family, maybe missing holidays.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not always with them all the time. I do my best to make everything and to see everyone and to be a part of things, but you also have a job, and, you know, you have to find that balance. So I think being away from your family and missing them is probably the hardest part of it, especially when you move away from home.
Kind of staying on that point of you saying that you sometimes have to leave family when you don't always want to, or work when you don't always want to. Does that kind of work on a basis of you were just put on the schedule and you knew weeks in advance you'd be working Christmas, for example? Or is it more so just kind of jumping off your couch and going to follow a story? Because we were supposed to have this interview a week ago, actually, and you had to call it off because you were following a story, which is so intriguing and exciting for us to hear. So kind of talk more about that, what that process is like.
Depends on the day. Some days you could stay put in one location, and then other days you could be going all over the place. It really just depends on the day. I always say nothing's really planned. You know, I wake up every morning and you never know where you're going to go, what you're going to cover, who you're going to meet, what you're going to do. And I think that's the most interesting part. And you look back, you know, come Friday, I look back and I'm like, wow, all the stories I was able to write, all the people I was able to meet. So a whole week's worth, it's just amazing of the places and the stories you were able to bring to people. It's an honor to be able to stand there and tell people the information.
Yeah, so you meet a lot of interesting people. You have a lot of interesting stories that you could tell. Is there any one story that you covered that really has stayed with you or stood out to you in a certain way?
I wouldn't say one. The thing I try to go with every single day is I'm either at people's worst times or I'm there for their best times. And I take each story that I'm given so seriously, and I do my best to tell the story the best I can for them. Every story that goes on air is my 100%. Like, this is the best I got. This is what I put together. I think what's rewarding too is when somebody watches it and they send you a thank you, or Kerri, thank you so much. You told my story so well. Or thank you. The thank yous really mean a lot too when people, you know, let you know. So I would have to say it's a lot of the connections. I want people to be able to talk to me like we're talking on the phone or like we're talking now, because sometimes interviews can be intimidating for people when you put the camera in their face and the mic, you know, it can be a lot. So I try to make it as like we're just having a conversation, and for them to open up to me and to trust me. And I think to form that connection, to be able to tell their story the best I can.
Can you talk a little bit more about that, actually? Because it is such a skill to be able to get the true colors out of someone that wouldn't necessarily do that in front of a camera. Whether it be someone coming to the LaSalle TV studio that is camera shy, or you going to the scene, putting a camera in their face, and being able to get them to tell the true story about who knows what. So can you talk about any tips or tricks that you have about getting that out of your interviewee?
I just try to be me. As I would go up to one of my friends or my family, I just try to say, what are you worried about? You know, I'll walk you through it. I want people to feel comfortable talking to me. And if they're not, I try to get them to that point. So I definitely just go up and introduce myself and, you know, try to form that connection with them so they're comfortable. It can be tough sometimes if people are scared or nervous, but I'm like, we're in this together. We're going to do this together. We'll get through it. So we do our best every day. So it works out.
Yeah, and you know, you have all these skills, you've been all these places, you've met all these people, had all these experiences. Is there any one lesson that you've learned that you would tell to other people that are aspiring to be in your position? Like, if you need to know one thing about being in broadcasting, this is what it would be.
I would have to say what I said earlier is be yourself. You know, don't try to be someone different when the TV turns on or when they hit record. Be you, because that's what people are going to love the most, and that's what people are going to want to see. I mean, you see so many newscasters and so many people on TV, and you know, just be you, and people will like you for you. And I think that's the biggest thing that I just try to keep is I kept me. I kept my background, where I'm from. You know, I'm still the same person that played sports, and you know, I'm still the same person. I want people to see that on television. So that's my biggest thing, is when they turn it on, that they're looking at me and it's not someone different.
Great. Well, I think that's a perfect sentiment to end that on. Kerri, this was great. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for having me.
Of course.
Of course.
Hey, and if you guys ever need anything, you have you have my cell phone number and email. You can let me know any way I can help you or anything you guys ever need, or just let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We'll definitely be using that.
And tell Tanya I said hi.
Yeah, she also says hi to you.
Yes.
You're doing well.
Well, that does it for this first ever edition of Virtual on the Sidelines. I'm Tyler Small. Thank you all for joining us. Now, I guess I'll send it back to the virtual desk.
Well, that just about wraps it up for us this week. Although LaSalle sports won't be played in the upcoming weeks, us here at SportsLine will be. Check out our social media to see upcoming interviews, segments, and much more.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Twitter at SportsLineLTV. We welcome you to send your thoughts and suggestions there.
For our SportsLine team, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. Thanks for seeing us, and we'll see you at the game.